Amen. Thank you, Brenna, and thanks to the brass. That was some pretty amazing music this morning. Very, very thankful for them being here. I am delighted to welcome to the sermon time of this morning James Ingold, friend of mine, and as many of you know, a long life member of Wesley United Methodist Church. James serves as our chair of Finance and Stewardship Committee. I want you to know, if you don't already, that professionally James is a CPA, which means he is really good at helping us think responsibly about balancing our budget and about our spending. But more important than that, James is a Christian, which means he helps our church look at our giving and our receiving and our budget through spiritual eyes. James and I have had a lot of great conversations through the years, usually sitting at the table in my office, about giving from a spiritual perspective, about how we steward God's resources. And so we thought maybe this morning would be a good opportunity to bring that conversation to you. So James, welcome to the preaching stool today.
Thank you, Sarah. It's good to be here. Hey, before I get started with the stewardship
You might not be
portion,
on.
Before we get started on the stewardship portion, I just have a question for you.
Yeah.
I came over to the church the other day for some finance committee work, and I couldn't believe how many cars were in the parking lot. Was it an unusual day here?
Actually, no. This place is busy, bustling with activity 7 days a week, and also on the evenings and the weekends. I don't know exactly what time you stopped by that day, but if you come by this parking lot, it could be full of cars because of people here for preschool, for Bible studies, for volunteer opportunities, a number of different reasons. Also the evenings. People gather here in the evenings for committee meetings, for mission meetings, for fellowship groups, and especially on Wednesday, where after the meal, Wednesdays at Wesley, people head off into their various activities like Bible study, music rehearsals, small groups, and so on. There are days as well that we host funerals or weddings or outside groups or district meetings. I mean, all of that is to say that if a person thinks this place is only hopping on a Sunday morning, that person is not here the rest of the week.
Yeah, hopping is right. This place is active 7 days a week, 365 days a year.
Yep.
But it's funny, though, that if you just look around on a Sunday morning, it doesn't seem quite as busy as it was, before the pandemic.
Yeah, I know what you mean. A lot of our members are still more comfortable worshiping online than coming into the building, and that's okay. We affirm that. We want you to know, those of you online with us today, that your participation counts in the kingdom of heaven, regardless of where you are. But we want you to know as well that we really work hard to make our ministries available to as many people as possible, whether inside the building or not. Even as the pandemic fades, we're committed to continuing our online worship, online Bible studies, making committee work available by Zoom. It does mean double duty for some of us, but it's really important to do both things and to do them well in order to meet the audience that we can see and the audience that we can't. So actually, since the start of COVID, our staff's responsibilities have increased rather than decreased. For example, John prepares a print bulletin for those of you here in the sanctuary, and also a PDF bulletin for those worshiping online. Kathy has a set of children's curriculum that she uses downstairs in the children's Sunday school rooms, but she also delivers that curriculum to the homes of kids who are not here in person. Pastor Evans and I are always here early to set up the camera and the microphone for committee meetings for those that want to join by Zoom, and the chairs of those committees email the handouts as well as making paper copies so that everybody can participate. You might think that there are fewer people involved these days, but would you believe that meeting attendance has actually grown since we made it possible for people to attend even when they're out of town or if they don't like to drive at night? We even make some of our service projects portable. We deliver the materials for home assembly so we can keep everybody connected and everybody included. What's better yet? It's actually working. We reached people in 32 states just last week, plus some worshipers in Nigeria and the Ukraine. We've received several new members who first started worshiping with Wesley online and then they joined in person. Several people actually began worshiping with us when they didn't even live here yet, and then moved to Bloomington and then joined us in person. In fact, just last week, we met this delightful couple from Arizona. They may not be moving here for another year or so, but until that time, they are part of our congregation from afar. We can't see them, but they can see us, and we know that they are here. So we kind of feel like we're already connected.
Yeah, so those who ask me if we really need as large a staff as we had pre the pandemic, when we see half of the attendance in the building, I guess the answer is yes. Mm-hmm. I know from my review of the financial statements that there had been some extra expense involved in doing many things two ways.
Sure.
But I guess it is important in today's society to think about ministry in several different ways. But I tell you, it does make me miss the old days. You know, when we were all in one place at one day, kind of like Pentecost.
Oh, I know, James. I feel the same way. But then I remember the day of Pentecost was really just one day. And after the Holy Spirit had descended upon the disciples there in Jerusalem, it sent them out. It sent the disciples out everywhere to bring the good news to people in different cities and countries and continents, people speaking different language groups. It was really amazing. It's almost like worshiping by internet, right? Except back in those days before internet, they had to spread the gospel through, well, testimonies and letters and visiting preachers like Paul. In fact, a huge portion of Paul's ministry, and of course all of his letters, were to people that he was pastoring from far away. They didn't call it virtual ministry back then. It was very, very real. But it was to and with and for people that sometimes Paul had never even met. He risked a lot for those people. He went to prison for them sometimes, whether they were strangers or friends, because in Paul's eyes, they were all friends of God.
Yeah, you've been preaching this month on Paul and Timothy. Mm-hmm. So was Timothy one of the people Paul brought to the faith?
Well, actually, Timothy was raised in the faith by his mother and his grandmother. But then as he grew older, when he became a young man, Paul took him on as an apprentice. And then later he became a ministry partner with Paul. And eventually Timothy became a preacher in his own right. So in today's scripture, which I promise we're getting to right now, Paul is getting ready to send Timothy to the Philippian church on his behalf. Paul can't go there himself because he is in prison in Rome for preaching the gospel. But he knows that the Philippians are concerned for his welfare. And he's concerned for them too. He wants to offer them a word of encouragement. Now this is, of course, long before the age of YouTube sermons and video messaging, so Paul can't just live stream himself to the church at Philippi. So he writes them a letter instead and tells them that he is sending Timothy in his place. So hear these words, not to Timothy, but about Timothy, from the book of Philippians chapter 2. I hope in the Lord Jesus to send Timothy to see you soon, so I may be encouraged by hearing about you. I have no one like him. He is a person who genuinely cares about your well-being. All the others put their business ahead of Jesus Christ's business, but you know his character, how he labors with me for the gospel, like a son works with his father. So he is the one that I hope to send as soon as I find out how things turn out here for me.
It sounds like Paul really trusted Timothy to represent him and Christ himself. I never really thought about Paul's ministry being in any way similar to what we've been doing here. But he did have the double burden of ministering to people that he could visit and see, and ministering to those he not only couldn't see, might never even meet. He was determined to encourage all people and strengthen their faith, even if he never got to see the fruits of his labor in person.
Exactly. And that's where his investment in Timothy's faith and Timothy's ministry really paid off. In later years, maybe you know, Timothy was really able to make a world of difference in Corinth and in Ephesus, as well as in Philippi, strengthening the churches even after Paul was gone. Timothy, Paul says in verse 20, genuinely cared about the churches that Paul had planted. And it turns out that Paul really multiplied the impact of the gospel the day he decided to support Timothy's ministry. So friends, that is kind of what we are doing here today as well. You may not be downstairs teaching the children's Sunday school right now, but you care that it happens, right? Those of you worshiping online, you may not be in the sanctuary with us, but what happens here matters to you as well. A lot of us may not be able to give up a week of work to go on a mission trip, but we genuinely care, verse 20, about our young people having that opportunity. Because we know that Sunday school and worship and mission trips, they change lives. They multiply the impact of the gospel beyond our personal experience. So we give to make ministry happen. And if we don't give, then it doesn't happen.
Absolutely. And that's why we're having this conversation in front of everybody today, so that they know what we know about the reach of Wesley's ministry and its cost. Believe me, we are as frugal as we can be, and we go over our financial statements and our budget preparation with a fine-tooth comb to make sure we are being excellent stewards of God's money and the financial gifts given by our members. But in order to keep doing this good ministry we are doing now with those in person and those online, we need about $1.1 million per year, assuming we stand firm on frugality, and if the Wesley trustees are able to help us out like they have this year with utilities, maintenance, and other building costs, that we've been fortunate that they've been able to do so.
So $1.1 million budget, that works out to a little less than $100,000 a month, right? James, help me with the math. What are we really talking about here?
Well, we're talking about approximately $3,000 per day to finance the church. Right now, about 37 of our households are giving about $3,000 a year, which means that those 37 households are funding one day of ministry at Wesley. We know some families simply cannot support a full day, but we're able to support an important portion of a day. And some families are able to give more, 2 days, 3 days, 2 weeks, 3 weeks. Every hour of ministry here counts, though, and every hour is an opportunity to reach somebody with the love of God.
It is. You know what, that reminds me of what I have been hearing on both Christian radio and public radio over the last month, how it takes a lot of people giving generously to fund programming that many other people receive without paying anything at all. I mean, you can listen to the radio station for free all day, every day, without contributing if you want to, but it's really more rewarding to know that you have helped support a program that means something to you, or that means something to somebody else. Which is what you and Martha are doing this coming Wednesday, right? To support your favorite radio station. You are sponsoring this coming Wednesday in honor of Wesley's pastors and staff of Wesley Church. I am really excited this week to tune in on Wednesday and just hear Wesley's name mentioned. I think that's really cool, and I want to thank both of you for doing that.
Well, it's our pleasure. You all work so hard for us, and we really appreciate your efforts. But we also want to support the radio station that feeds me during the week and honor our pastors and staff all at the same time. It just seems like a convenient way to do it.
Yeah. How did you decide which day to sponsor?
Actually, we just asked for a day in October because it's Pastor Appreciation Month, and we thought it was a fitting time to do so. But any day worked. It really didn't matter. We just wanted to support their ministry. As I've always told the radio station manager over there, we give to them to provide hope for what we cannot see. I can imagine things like, what if someone listening that day hears about Wesley and decides what a great church it is and comes and visits? Or what if somebody listening that day hears a song that lifted their spirits on a day they were really down? Or my ultimate prayer, what if somebody listening that day hears something that makes them want to devote their life to Christ? I mean, that would be an investment in eternity, which is priceless.
Oh, you're so right. That's really kind of inspiring. I think Paul would be impressed by that. We know part of what we're paying for when we give to the church, right? We know we're paying for the light and the heat and the staff and the donuts, of course. But honestly, we don't know the half of it. If I am able to sponsor a day or 2 days or a week of ministry at Wesley, I could be making possible the day that somebody gets called into ministry, or the day somebody prays the Lord's Prayer for the first time, or the day that somebody hears the words, "You are forgiven." I think somebody's life could be dramatically changed through our generosity.
Exactly, and that's why we want to think of our gifts to Wesley in 2023 as sponsorships of a moment in time. I don't like to think of paying for certain budget items either, like glass cleaner or, supplies. But I want to think of in terms of possibilities. Making it possible for ministries to happen in the building, out in the community, online, around the world. I want to know that Wesley makes a world of difference, even if we don't see the whole world at once.
Oh, I love that idea, James. And I love giving the congregation a little glimpse into it. We've been collecting some stories recently. I want to tell you one that came to me from Karen Doddelin. She said that a teacher in one of the elementary schools contacted the paper distribution recently on behalf of a family that was really in need. This was a family with 2 parents and 5 kids, from little bitty infants all the way through to teenagers. And the middle child, an elementary school boy, was in the hospital, and his condition was really serious. And so the family was not only really worried about him, but they were running short of money for things like paper goods, food, diapers, and they were running short on hope. But we were able to provide the diapers and the paper goods and the groceries that they needed. And the teacher said that because somebody was willing to reach back and share, we were able to provide them with some hope as well.
Wow, that's inspiring. And I've got another one.
Okay?
In the past year, we lost both Jerry and Stephanie Perky, a couple of on the surface, ordinary members of the church.
Yeah.
As we shared stories at Jerry's funeral, and many since the funeral, it became apparent to many folks who didn't know them very well just how much Jerry and Stephanie did to make the community a better place. Our church, especially Barb Williams, some choir members, helped Jerry and Stephanie out a lot over the years. But they paid it forward by helping others, inspiring members of this church to serve others more lovingly. You might not think that funding the chancel choir makes many differences in people's lives, but I can tell you, I bet there's a bunch of people back there that say that Jerry changed their lives forever.
Wow. Wesley really makes a world of difference. Sometimes in ways we can see, sometimes in ways we can't. But there are good things happening here all the time and every day. It is truly a privilege to give as a part of that thing. I love to think that my resources can be part of that.
I totally agree, except for one little thing.
Except for what?
They're not your resources.
Yeah.
They're God's resources. Everything we have, everything we think we've earned or produced, every contribution we make from what we think of as ours, it's actually already God's. God gives us the freedom to choose what we do with what we've been given to steward, and asks us to acknowledge His ownership by giving back the first 10% of our income. I usually advise people to give first 10%, then set aside 10% for savings, and then the rest, the 80%, is for their own needs.
Yeah.
But whether we keep 90 or 80 or 70%, it's all God's.
It is all God's. So James, are you hoping that people will commit 10% of their income today, or that they will sponsor one day of ministry?
I'd love it either way. As we've said, it costs about $3,000 to sponsor a day here at Wesley. If 365 people would do that, we'd be covered. Of course, we know not everybody can give $3,000 a year. It's beyond their means. But for everyone who can only afford half a day, there's somebody else who might be able to afford 2 days. Somebody a quarter day, somebody else could do 4 days. But that's just how it works. That's what makes it work in the church. We all do what we can. We give from what we've been given, and God works it out. By the way, we are hoping that looking at sponsorship opportunities doesn't cause anyone to reduce their giving from last year. We'd really hate to get to November of 2023 and miss out on Advent with no more ministry dollars. But my prayer is that if you aren't tithing at this point, that you just take that one step further and maybe invest in some more ministries. And if you are tithing, maybe just get rid of that strict 10% formula and go in above and beyond and support another day or two.
So whether you think of your giving as tithing or as sponsorship, it all really makes a tangible difference. And the most important thing is not how much you give, it's that everybody gives what they can. I would rather get a card in from every single member, even if it means we only fund up through November, than receive the whole $1.1 million budget because 2 or 3 people shouldered the burden for everybody else.
Yeah, I agree. It reminds me of what Danny Thomas once said to a group of St. Jude donors. He said, I would rather get $1 from 1 million people than $1 million from one person.
Oh, yeah. And remember, that dollar that you give might be the world of difference for somebody right here in the sanctuary.
Or somebody worshiping online.
Or somebody that you may never meet at all. God calls us to be like Paul, to be like Timothy, to scatter seed that we may never see grow, or to invest in kids that we may not know as adults, to speak hope to people who may never physically enter the sanctuary.
And just as Paul encouraged the church, let me encourage everyone with his words when he said, but since you excel in everything, in faith, in speech, in knowledge, in complete earnestness, and in the love we have kindled in you, see that you also excel in this grace of giving. So thanks for listening in on one of our stewardship conversations. We hope it encouraged you to cheerfully support Wesley in 2023 so we can continue to make a world of difference. And just let us know if you have any questions.
Amen. Thank you, James. I really appreciate it. So we want to move now to a time of spiritual preparation for our commitment. If you brought with you or can reach one of those commitment cards packets that is in your pew, and those of you online, if you can go to the stewardship link on our website, we invite you to take that out now. And as the choir is singing an anthem, just take some time with this to reflect upon your giving, your sponsorship, your investment, how it is that you would like to help Wesley make a world of difference, not just with your finances, but also through your prayers, through the commitment of your time and your talent. Take some time with that again as the choir is singing, and when they have finished, Ben is going to present to us a wonderful slideshow that shows evidence, fruit of our labors, how Wesley truly is making a world of difference. And as the slideshow begins, you're invited to stand, to come forward, and to place your card in the bowl at the front with a prayer of thanks to God for all that God has given to us that we might share. If it's difficult for you to come forward for any reason, I'm sure that there's somebody in the pew that could carry your card forward for you. And if you're not a member here, please feel free to just fill out the prayer section. Your prayers make all the difference in the world as well. So let us take some time now to pray as we commit our lives to God.